from UKZN, Sarchi Chair of Rural Livelihoods, Ms. Matlangu from Channel Africa, our Director of Research and Development, Dr. Mabila, all colleagues who are here, all our students who are here, both postgraduate students from our university and students from elsewhere, and all colleagues from our sister universities assembled here today. And be able to respond, because NRF emphasizes the issue of impact, be able to respond decisively to the challenges facing our nation. So we're extremely honored by your presence here, chairs. And I'm also informed that we have got an NRF-rated researcher here, Dr. Mabila. Not one, maybe many. How many? 7 of them. Several of them here in the midst. So again, that's the indication of the high premium that we place on academic debates at this particular symposium. Yes, in terms of numbers, we might appear to be fewer, but as the maxim goes, better fewer but better. I think the debates that are likely to come out of here are going to revolutionize the knowledge project in South Africa in those specific areas. Program Director, I'm also pleased that we have students here in our midst, our postgraduate students, students from other universities, so that they can start learning from the best and start interacting with established researchers and be able to fine-tune whatever work that they're doing in their own academic spaces. Be able to assimilate and be able to follow the trends that are emerging in their own knowledge areas. And also importantly, the government, because some of the things that we're going to be discussing here are going to depend on the absorption capacity of the government, the provincial government, to be able to take them forward. So colleagues from the Limpopo provincial government, Jackie and other colleagues who are here, we are glad that you are here so that we could then form a very strong partnership to take forward some of the debates that are going to come out of here in the laboratory of practice. Because yes, we can theorize here as academics and so on, but in the ultimate end, there is a real laboratory that some of these ideas must be tested in. So we are glad that you are also here. And my colleagues from TGSL, who are all here, I should indicate that the university has taken a position that TGSL must be reimagined, and there's a process to reimagine TGSL that is currently underway to ensure that it is repositioned as a premier leadership school in our province, in our country. And that reimagination process is going to require all of us to hold hands to ensure that it becomes the best business school that we have ever dreamt of in our university, and also in our country and in our province. And the kind of work that we have been doing, the research work that we have been doing at this school, is a very important piece of work. The Executive Dean of the Faculty, thank you once again and welcome. Thank you for the leadership that you've provided, together with the Director of the school, to ensure that we are able to sustain this momentum. When you started last year with the symposium, a lot of naysayers were saying we'll see how sustainable this project is going to be. So I'm happy that you have walked the path, and now we are on the second symposium. And this is now going to be established in our annual calendar as an important activity in our university calendar. And as you debate issues that you'll be debating today, I look forward to insightful deliberations. I look forward to seeing you interrogating established narratives, critically interrogating established narratives, I look forward to you providing solutions to the problems that bedevil our country in the areas that you will be deliberating on today. Doing that will be consistent with our motto as a university of finding solutions for Africa. Thank you very much, and all of you are welcome, and best wishes to you.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor, for the opening of the TGSL second Global Leadership and Sustainability Symposium. We are very much excited to see how we take the school forward as an institution. And indeed, I was trying to find things to gloat about. So I checked how many academic conferences make it to their second year, so that I can say, ours made it to the second year. And I found that as much as over 70% of academic conferences make it to their second year or beyond the second year, but that is dependent on the institutional support that they receive, and the institution seeing the value in the discussions and the dialogues that that particular conference, the niche area of that conference. So I'm glad that we have the support of our institution, and that this will now be an important event of our university. Allow me to ask Professor Tanyani Matsibandila to come and give us the background of this symposium, and also to set the tone in terms of our debates and our panel discussions. We always say in our committee that he's responsible for the scientific part and of the conference. It lies with him. So, Prof, over to you.
Thank you, Program Director, for the opportunity to come and sort of set a tone in terms of the deliberations that we are going to have throughout these 2 days. I would like to write on the protocol already observed by our VC, but I would like to acknowledge our VC, Dr. Mabiliwili. I'd also like to acknowledge the acting VC of University of Venda, Professor Natswera. I would like to also acknowledge our second keynote speaker, Professor Mubangizi, and also our Dean and our Director for continuing to support our ideas when it comes to this part of the academic project, which is research related. Just to give context to where we are in terms of the symposium, and also where we started in terms of the conceptualization of the symposium. So we conceptualized the symposium sometime last year in June, where we were thinking about the continuing discussion and discourse around the relationship between development and the environment, which has been there for decades. And we have seen that development and the environment, there's always been a conflict between development and the environment. Whereas as development experts, we always want to come up with new ideas in terms of how to develop. Whereas the environmentalists on the other side, they are talking about the need to protect the environment. And there's always been a friction between development and the environment. In the early 70s, the ideas around sustainable development emerged to try to create a symbiotic relationship between development and the environment. And we had conferences like Stockholm Conference, we had the Brundtland report, which talks a lot about how sustainable development need to be a discourse around how development and the environment should be integrated. But of course, sustainable development itself has its own politics. There are people in the beginning who suspected that the ideas of sustainable development were closely linked with what we'll call the new colonization, because it was around the issue of the usage of resources. I mean, we still see it even today that most of the resources are used by people who are not within the country. We see that establishment of game parks, game reserves, and so on. Majority of communities who are surrounding these game parks don't really benefit anything out of them. And we see that whereas local communities are regarded as poachers, and stakeholders from outside are regarded as sportsmen who come to hunt for, and all that. And you find that communities are not really benefiting. So these debates have been happening for a while. And around early 1990s, the ideas around climate change came through. And the debate around climate change sort of added to the debate around sustainable development. And we all know that there were a lot of critics and skeptics when it comes to climate change, saying it's not a reality and all that. But we all know that by this point, we are no longer talking about the predicting that there will be unprecedented rainfalls, there will be unprecedented climatic conditions. They are currently happening. I mean, we saw this early this year here in Limpopo province, some areas being flooded, and something that has not really happened in the past. You can talk about the floods of 2000, but this year, the impact was beyond what we could imagine. So the symposium, in terms of its conceptualization, was around how do we then move forward, trying to respond to these aspects relating to climate change. And our first theme for 2025, it was around innovation, climate change management, and energy transition. So we're trying to bridge the gap between how to bring about innovation for both climate change mitigation but also adaptation. Because what we have realized is that most of the discussions around climate change, mitigation, adaptation are skewed. You find that most of financing goes towards mitigation other than adaptation. And the issues of adaptation, of course, affect the poor who do not really have any means to respond to climate change. So the idea of the first symposium was around how do we then bridge the gap between the discussion around energy transition and its impact on the socio-economic activities of communities. For example, around power stations, mines, and so on. And this year, we decided that we need to take the discussion further and look at innovation for climate change governance and sustainable development. How do we then bring sustainable development back into the discussion of climate change? And how do we then bring innovation as part of responding to climate change? I think earlier it was mentioned that we recently received a SACHI chair from NRF in collaboration with Sasol Foundations around environmental and socio-economic sustainability. Of course, you can see it closely relates to the symposium. When we established the symposium, we didn't know that we were going to receive the SACHI chair. But the SACHI chair closely relate to that. And what we are thinking now is, how do we go beyond the discussions? How do we take forward the discussions into implementation? How do we then come about establishing rural innovation hubs for climate change response? How do we, bring about discourses around sustainable livelihoods amid the climate change discourse and so on? So we've been having discussions with different stakeholders around what we need to do as part of implementation of what we are discussing beyond just the classroom, beyond just the conference, but taking the action back to the communities so that we are able to have real impact. Impact not according to us, but impacts according to the beneficiaries, who are communities who will benefit out of the activities of the SACHI chair. So that is the idea that we've been having, and that is the idea that we'll be taking forward. So we really appreciate that you were able to come to this symposium, and we'll talk more about what we're going to do next year, which is bigger than this in terms of the ideas around the symposium. So thank you very much for being here. We really appreciate your support, and we know that you will support us going forward. Enjoy the rest of the symposium. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Matsibanila. Indeed, the panel that we're going to have, the panel discussion we're going to have this morning, expands on the background that Prof. Matsibanila just gave us. It looks at, how do we promote, the human and the science, how do we promote the collaboration between the two, so that we find solutions that are not leaning, aligned with one side than the other. So our panel will be this morning discussing or will be deliberating on that, and hopefully we'll then be getting very clear directions as we leave this conference as to when we go back to our communities, how do we promote that relationship? Allow me to acknowledge some of our guests or delegates. We have Mr. Putikabe from Polokwane Municipality, Polokwane Local Municipality, who is the manager for disaster management. We have Ms. Letabo Dikale. I call her Dikale Waga Dikale because she's from Guatikale. She is the provincial coordinator for South African Library for the Blind, which again speaks to how we are intentional in reaching all members of our society with, as our university motto says, we don't want to leave anyone behind. And we have Ms. Moloto Nakeng, who is one of our sponsors for this symposium. And we have, again, from the Office of the Premier, we have the Chief Director for Research and Policy Development, Mr. Puti Mosomane. And under the directors, I believe we also have Dr. Malindi and Dr. Mokokong, all from the Office of the Premier. We'll continue as acknowledging colleagues as I see them, and it's very worrying because I seem to know a lot of people in this province compared to home. I now feel lost when I'm in KZN. As we continue, I would like to ask Dr. Mabila, our Director for Research Administration and Development, to give a message of support for this very important research activity of the university.
Thank you very much, Chair. This occasion, the second Global Leadership and Sustainability Symposium. I hope I put it right. It's a very important occasion, Vice Chancellor and the Vice Chancellor of the University of Venda, Executive Dean, and all colleagues, and protocol observed. Mine is just to give words of support. And I looked at the occasion and I thought at the confluence this morning are the words leadership, governance, and sustainability. If you want, you can throw in climate change, but I think climate change is incorporated in the word sustainability already. And there can't be a more urgent time to ensure that there's sustainability globally. But also you cannot look at the global without focusing on the local. So in what Professor Madzivandila was saying, I could pick up that in actual fact, this event is also an event that creates sustainable collaborations. We mentioned the participation of our two mainstream universities in Limpopo. I saw in the program the deputy chairperson of the Limpopo Research Forum is featured somewhere. The Limpopo Research Forum sits at the Premier's office in the Research and Development, which is under the leadership of Ntate Phutimu Somane, who is sitting amongst us here, working with Dr. Malindi and Dr. Mokoko. We cannot be able to sustain such an event annually unless we create lively collaborations. So I think as platforms like this recognize the strengths that we have, we can only be more greater than we are. And thanks God, the conference is a global conference. So we can see it sustainable beyond just sitting in these premises and perhaps becoming really a global conference. Most conferences refer to themselves as international conference, but this one is a global one. And I can picture that. So in providing support, Executive Dean, because this conference sits at your table, we obviously would need to ensure that our planning incorporates this event as a major event of the university. We are now compelled because when last year one saw this conference taking place, and later on there was a call from Sasol NRF for a Sachi Chair, Sasol Foundation in Environment, blah, blah, blah. I could not hesitate but say in a silent whisper to Professor Madzivandila, we are getting this one. And we got it. And now we have to sustain it, probably for the next 15, 20 years. And this is one of the events that will ensure that we sustain it. We have to strengthen the relationship, Vice Chancellor, with the university, is what called? Iowa State University. Because as such a chair, and I think Prof sitting next to you, the Vice Chancellor will tell you, such a chair cannot survive unless they have also international collaborations and international partnerships. We have to sustain it in that way. And I think, Professor Madzivandila, you can rest assured, I had already the word poaching mentioned 2 times this morning. It was mentioned by yourself when you spoke about the game reserves, but it was also mentioned by your boss, the Vice Chancellor. Sustainability can only happen if we are able to use that word positively and take away the connotation that is negative. To be able to go around poaching the relevant collaborations, working together. We have no choice, Professor Netswera, we have to work together as universities in Limpopo to sustain these kind of things. This conversation cannot be a University of Limpopo conversation, and I'm glad that the committee chose you to come and speak today, because we can only be able to be complementary. There are these parasites that take from other and leave the other to die. but we should be these parasites that are able to mutually benefit. I don't know what they call them. I don't have symbiosis. So we should benefit as much as you benefit as Univen in the relationship that we have. Unfortunately, the two of you vice chancellors, you came when already we have decided on the marriage. This thing called the Limpopo Research Forum is actually an indirect way in which the university got married. And they put a third partner in the provincial government. And we have now become a polygamous marriage in the sense that we now have TUT, we have UNISA that are sitting at our desk there. So we have to rely on the two of you and your leaderships in the two universities to support this. And if you support that, you indirectly are supporting these kind of initiatives and the research chairs. So I'd like to congratulate the TGSL, Professor Mukwena, for sustaining this into the second year, and I think it's well for the program director to celebrate that it has made it to its second year. Most of them die in first year. But I know it's not the case when it is under the stewardship of Professor Sibanda. So, Prof. Sibanda, we shall work together to support this initiative, and I congratulate you on yet another successful event. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mabila. The support, we appreciate it very much. We'll need to also be specific that, Machankura are better support than any other. So we, as we grow, the needs that need financing are also going to be growing. So I'm saying it here when all my bosses are here, from all levels, from school, faculty, and executive, and the university, they are here. So no one will be surprised by my proposal when we submit for the conference. There is a slight change on our program. Mr. Nchabeling, the Director General of the Limpopo Province or Limpopo Provincial Government and Administration, is committed to something. No, Prof. Sibana, don't do that. He could not get out of. However, he will be joining us this afternoon. He will then be welcoming all of us to this gathering also. Most importantly, welcoming our delegates from outside the province. Vice Chancellor, we have over 14 universities represented in terms of our delegates. I think that deserves a round of applause. And we have 4 international universities that will be presenting, which includes a university in Zimbabwe, National University of Lesotho, and 2 universities in Nigeria. And we have another 4 institutions which are research and government institutions that are represented. So in total, we have over 18 respective institutions represented here. I'm going to ask our Executive Dean, Professor Sibanda, to come and introduce our keynote. And after that, I will not be coming back. Prof. Sibanda will then invite our keynote to take the podium.
Oh, thank you, Vice Chancellor. I wanted to know if this podium will sustain my weight. No, remember you're talking about sustainable development, sustenance, and then no conference will ever be sustainable if the convener and the executive dean are not wearing the same suit. With that said, and then good morning once more, all the delegates, in particular our two vice chancellors, and in particular the vice chancellor of the University of Limpopo. You have tasked me together with the director of the school to do these introductory remarks. Professor Fulufelo Netera is the acting vice chancellor of the University of Venda and a substantive deputy vice chancellor for research and postgraduate studies at the University of Venda. He has served in numerous research councils and universities, including Technikon South Africa, the University of South Africa, the University of Limpopo, the Cape Peninsula University of Technology, Northwest University, Durban University of Technology, the National Research Foundation, the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, the Human Sciences Research Council, and the National Institute for the Humanities and Social Sciences in the capacities of researcher, research director, business school director, and executive dean. He also served as a board member of the Southern African Research and Innovation Management Association, we call it SARIMA, the Human Sciences Research Council, and they pick it up in the city of Johannesburg. I had to say this one right, pick it up. He meshed, and I think that's one of also those, successful things that would happen in one's life when you are confronted with mergers and acquisitions. He meshed the Mafikeng and the Potchefstroom business schools into the Northwest University Business Schools in 2018 and established the Durban University of Technology Business School and the BRICS Research Institute in 2021. He continues to publish in multilateralism and opinion pieces on South African politics and governance. Professor Netera, a true patriot, obsessed with the development of the African continent and its people. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me and join me in welcoming Professor Netera to the podium.
Thank you very much, Program Director, and thank you, Professor Svanda, for the introductions. No, you don't have to. Yes. He wants to display my notes. Yeah, so thanks a lot. I will talk without. I think Dr. Mawila, in a way, provoked me to respond. So before I even talk, maybe let me respond. Indeed, I'm really happy to come back to Limpopo and to come to Univen in particular. I'm very, very happy about it. And it's a conscious decision that I took, that I want to come to Univen and plow back at Univen and make Univen great. I actually think we do not realize the potential of our rural universities. We always believe that universities in big cities, in Cape Town, Durban, and Johannesburg, are the universities that are positioned to do best in comparison to all others. Little do we realize the amount of work, the amount of resources that we do not tap on here in the rural villages. And of course, my primary mission is to make sure that Univen and University of Limpopo merge. He was reading about merging the business schools in Northwest, so I'm going to merge these two. Thanks a lot, colleagues. So the protocol is observed, but let me start. And before I go to that, so the work we are doing with the province, beyond just the Limpopo Research Forum, I really want us to take it to another level, Dr. Mawila. And I want us, where possible, to put together laboratories that are provincial between 31 and 1. 31 of this month and the 1st of September with the provincial Univen and a few other agencies. We are going to have a very intensive debate and discussion about how we should collaborate and the kind of infrastructure we need in order to make this work possible. So let me revert to my speech. As I was saying, the protocol is already observed, but I would like to acknowledge a few people, not because they stand above everybody else, but because protocol is important at times. So the Vice Chancellor of the University of Limpopo, Dr. Mabilibili, thank you very much for gracing this important symposium, which is to be converted into an annual conference. With your blessing, we think that it will be sustainable. I want to also to acknowledge the other two keynote speakers, Professor Mubangisi from UKZN. I've worked with her for quite a very long time. Since 2011, we were reminiscing about the work we've been doing together. Annually, Women in Science Awards, as she was chairing and I was supporting her. Professor Owusu, I haven't seen him, but I hope he's here with us. Also the other keynote speaker. Professor Sibanda, the Executive Dean, Professor Mkwena, the Director of the TGSL, DG Napen Chabeling, I haven't seen him, but I hope that he will be here with us. Executive members of the university, professors, students, members of TGSL, good morning, Tobela, and Machironi Sanbona. I want to thank you for inviting me to contribute to this second Global Leadership and Sustainable Symposium. I am pleased to revert to TGSL since the last 10 years. I served here as the director of the TGSL between 2013 and 2015. And we had a very nice time as far as I'm concerned. I don't know what everybody else think, but I had fun. I had fun. I do recall we had book launches here. Prince Mashele came to talk about the fall of the ANC. Very interesting talk that we had. I bring to you warm greetings from the University of Venda, of course, and I commend the University of Limpopo for placing governance leadership at the center of climate conversations, because after all, everything hinges on good governance and leadership. Everything we do, whether it's at municipal level, whether it's schools, whether it's university, whether it's the running of our country, everything hinges on good governance and good leadership. So this spotlight on climate governance is very, very important for us. As Michael Porter puts it, leadership without direction is like a ship without a rudder. And of course, we've learned of ships that go lost in the deep oceans. And when you are in the deep ocean, chances without a rudder, chances are you may circle in one area over and over again. And you will never find your course, you will never know where you are going. So it's very important that we have very good leadership that reminds us at regular intervals what our targets are, where we are going, and what we intend to achieve. That's extremely important. We meet at an important juncture when the World Meteorological Organization confirmed that between 2015 and 2025, were the 11 hottest years on record. 2015 to 2025 were the hottest in the world. And of course, we can talk about the human footprint and influence as far as that change is concerned, and what we are doing in order to mitigate. On the one hand, the World Bank's poverty and inequality platform estimates that over 831 million people, almost 1 billion people, live below the poverty line. This is as of 2025. On the other hand, our technological capabilities are advancing at a speed of light, such that we can send drones to kill people some 6,000 miles away. So there are these contrasts. We are developing at a very rapid rate, such that we can even resolve challenges that are unforeseen. But at the same time, there are pressing challenges in front of us which we either seem to ignore or we do not prioritize. We can simulate and resolve problems that have not emanated. We can model floods, improve electricity grids, develop cleaner materials, and use artificial intelligence to identify climate risks. Artificial intelligence giants such as NVIDIA, Microsoft, and OpenAI have issued a call to halt developments on AI systems beyond GPT-4. And I think this was a 2024 statement. For a number of reasons. That include that AI may consume us. It may take over. It has that potential to take over and direct and redirect itself without human intervention. And that statement by the AI giants, it's a very critical juncture in our development as far as technology is concerned worldwide. I've seen Elon Musk talk about the very same issues, and he was indeed extremely worried about where we are heading. I was listening to Al Jazeera this morning. There are the advancements as far as drone wars are concerned have reached a stage where they are able to pinpoint where to kill, how many to kill, while they are sitting in Washington, D.C. So, and we're talking about something happening in Ukraine. So these developments are really very scary. The big challenge is whether or not we will be consumed by our technologies, or whether climate change itself, climate action, will get the opportunity to do so before AI before AI. Some doomsayers, according to some doomsayers, we are reaching the precipice, and that the end is almost near. Our greatest challenge, therefore, may not be invention. It is whether we have the intention, the leadership, the political courage to direct innovation towards the public good. That is the argument I want to make today. Sustainable climate innovation depends not on influential countries like the US, China, and Russia. Eleanor Ostmore's work on polycentric governance reminds us that climate action does not depend on one center of authority alone. National governments matter, but so do provinces, municipalities, universities, businesses, and communities. The challenge is to build institutions and partnership that remain effective even when political authority shifts. The same question arises when we turn to artificial intelligence. AI can improve early warning systems, precision agriculture, climate science, water management, and renewable energy forecasting. But AI also has a physical footprint. It requires electricity, water, minerals, and data centers. I hope you have taken interest at the amount of energy that is required by AI, these hubs. It's really staggering. The amount of water that is required to cool down those engines is also really astonishing. The International Energy Agency estimates that electricity use by data centers could rise from 485 terawatts hour in 2025 to around 950 terawatts hour by 2030. That is over the demand for energy by France. At 485 terawatts, that is above France 440 terawatts demand annually, and double the terawatts demands by the UK, which is currently sitting at 264 terawatts. So we should not assume that every new technology is automatically sustainable. An algorithm does not become green simply because the word climate appears in its title or slogan. Good governance must address energy and water use, emissions, efficiency, and affordability. It must also address access. Africa cannot remain only a consumer of technological developments. We need to develop our own computing capabilities, databases, researchers, innovators working on African priorities such as food security, water resilience, public health, sustainable cities, waste management, and circular economies generally. We see the same governance challenges in the race for critical minerals. Those who are following the story of the Central Africa, specifically the DRC East, know by now that the scramble continues. The green and digital transition depends on copper, lithium, cobalt, graphite, and rare earth elements, which are the high deposits of the DRC, but equally of China. The resources are increasingly scarce and are responsible for industrial and geopolitical power tussling. In 2025, excluding rare earth, the leading refining country held an average market share of about 72% across key minerals. These are the Chinese. For Africa, this presents both opportunity and risk because we have the rare minerals, but we do not refine them. We sell them raw. The resource curse literature reminds us that mineral wealth does not automatically produce development. Resource abundance can exist alongside weak institution, rent-seeking, conflict, and dependency on raw exports. But geology does not determine destiny. Institutions matter, leadership matter, policy choices equally matter. Africa's green minerals must not reproduce an old extractive model in a new color where the ore lives, the value lives with it, and communities remain with environmentally damaged and unsustainable lands and water resources. The African Green Minerals Strategy points towards a different path based on local value addition, regional value chains, and climate resilient industrialization. This is extremely important so that we refine these minerals and we sell final products so that the value is retained here and employment is created in the continent. But so that we can equally take care of the environment ourselves. As we know from experience, the multilateral companies that come to our shore are here only to exploit, and they live in their path major devastation in our communities. That means transparent licensing, responsible revenue management, environmental safeguards, meaningful community participation, beneficiation, skills development, and investment in African universities. Put simply, Africa must mine more responsibly, process more of what it mines, and negotiate more collectively rather than individually. And indeed, the exploitation that continues to go on is the outcome of our individuality as small countries rather than collective bargaining. But a sustainable transition must also be a just transition. UNEP estimates that developing countries will require between $310 billion and $365 billion annually for adaptation by 2035. While international public adaptation finance was only about 26 billion. So you can see the difference between 26 billion in 2024 for climate adaptation vis-a-vis the 310. So the gap is extremely huge. Markets will often finance what produces a quick return. Leadership must also invest in what protects lives, resilient water system, climate smart agriculture, safer settlements, and early warning system. This is where mission orientation, reorientation, innovation, and just transition thinking becomes very important. Mariana Mazzucato reminds us that the state can help shape markets around public discourse. And I think the Chinese state, the core role of the state, is a very critical one, and we can learn lessons there. As the Western models of prioritizing capital's interest have proven to fail. Just transition scholarship asks three questions which are very essential. Who benefits and who carries the cost? who participates in decision, whose knowledge and livelihoods are recognized. Makoti illustrates the challenge clearly. Closing a coal-fired unit may be an engineering decision, but supporting the livelihoods around those towns where the fire engine or the coal station is closed remains a big question. So building skills, reorientating skills, diversifying local economies, and maintaining community trust are governance challenges. These are not the challenges that confront corporates. These are our challenges as governments and as governance institutions. So what does leadership require? First, clearly public mission, affordable, clean energy, resilient water, a system, dignified green employment, and healthier communities. Secondly, capable institutions able to coordinate policy, regulation, finance, and implementation. Thirdly, justice must be built into policy from the very beginning. And fourth, accountability must survive individual leaders through public participation, open information, and sharing, and independent evaluation. Universities also have a special responsibility in this value chain. The University of Limpopo and the University of Venda are our partners and should not simply be observers of this transition. And I think this gathering proves indeed that we don't want to observe. But much more importantly, we ought to have in our midst corporates who are responsible for soil degradation, for the pollution of the rivers and the dam, just transition. We should help shape it by training climate literate leaders, because the assumption that our leaders are climate literate might be a false assumption. Let me conclude by raising the following. The question is no longer whether climate innovation will happen. It is already happening. The more important questions are, whose problems will it resolve? Whose resources will it consume? Who will own the value it creates? And who will carry the risks and the burden? Governance is not the enemy of innovation. Good governance gives innovation direction and purpose, as well as legitimacy. Africa, therefore, faces a choice. We can enter the green and digital economy mainly as a source of minerals and market for technology developers elsewhere, or we can enter it as designers, manufacturers, and co-creators, as well as pioneering the research associated with it. Our ambition must be the latter. Ultimately, leadership should be judged not only by the technologies we announce or the policies we publish, but by the capabilities we build, the communities we strengthen, the lives we protect, and the future we make possible. Tobel, nda. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof, for that address. My director always says that if we say good governance, it means we accept that there is an alternative. So that has always been a question we have, that are we accepting that there is the opposite of good governance, and then is it accepted? Because if we keep saying good governance, it means we're accepting that there is also the opposite, and there are people who are more inclined to the opposite. And as Prof said, and the questions he raises is very, I think as I said, our panel will then take it further to say, how do we then respond? And without leaving our communities, in the conversation, because we've seen a number of times, especially when we gather as academic conversation, so that they are able on their own, to also come up with solutions. And I'm glad in our panel we have Dr. Mdluli, who is pushing indigenous knowledge and responses, from, she just came back specifically for this symposium. She just came back from covering elections in Zambia. And that is how important executive dean people take us. Over to you, Sis Nhlanhla.
Thank you so much, Program Director, and good morning. Thank you so much for that introduction. It's such a pleasure and an honor for me to be amongst VCs, professors, researchers, students, once again back here in this province of Limpopo. Without wasting any more time, I'd actually like to call upon my panelists who will be deliberating on a few key issues. I had my notes here. I don't know whether I left them there or what, but so without wasting any time, I'd like to call Professor M.F. Rachidi from the University of Limpopo to join me here. Thank you. As we wait for the professor, I'd also like to call upon Mr. R. Tengwe from the University of Limpopo also. Dr. T.D. Mdluli, also from the University of Limpopo. You can sit anyway. And lastly, Dr. K.K. Maimela from P-SETA. I'm not sure if the panelists are going to get their own mics. Okay, must I sit there? Must I sit there? Okay. Thank you so much for taking your time and availing yourself to be part of this important panel. Now, environmental and development challenges cannot be addressed by natural sciences or science isolation. Issues such as climate change, resource depletion, pollution, biodiversity loss, and sustainable development are shaped by interaction between natural systems, human needs, livelihood, economies, and governance. Now, this panel, we are hoping, will explore the human natural sciences nexus as an approach to understanding and addressing these interconnected challenges. Maybe to get things started, Dr. Mdluli, what would you say are some of the biggest challenges that we are currently underestimating when it comes to climate change?
Oh, thank you, Chair. I think the biggest challenge is that we have this concept of participation. And the participation, we speak about the knowledge holders, I mean our communities. But then they are not participating. Instead, we are reporting to them because we go to them with information, with policies, just to inform them. And to answer that again is that we have to be meaningful to our communities in terms of including them in everything that we do. We cannot sit down as researchers and we say we are promoting or we are giving solutions to the communities while they are not included or they are not part of the house. I think in terms of integrating indigenous knowledge system into technology and communities or the leadership, there should be this participatory inclusive. We should include our communities in all means.
Thank you for that. And Mr. Netengwe, how can climate governance become more inclusive and responsive to communities affected by environmental and climate challenges?
Well, thank you very much for that question. And I think I will approach it focusing on three perspectives. Firstly, issue has to do with our constitution, because I hope we are all aware that everyone has a right to the environment that is not harmful to their well-being and also health. So, but while we are still there, we also have Bill of Rights, Chapter 2. It also indicates that everyone should have access to education. And to some extent, it's more like our communities are not well equipped with the issue of education. So with regard to that, it should be the responsibility of the government, as also stated under the section 146 of the Constitution, to say that local governance has objects. And I hope Prof. Mugwena will also correct me if I'm misquoting the Constitution. And one of the objects of the local governance now is to provide services to local communities. And if communities are not adequately being provided with such services, we'll end up experiencing, for example, the challenges of soil erosion. Because now communities themselves, they will need to find means to survive. And we can all agree to say that there is no way that communities can survive alone. So, and with regard to our climate governance, the policies that are being also being there formulated, they should focus on context. Local communities should be consulted. And with regard to that, their participation should not be just that consulting participation, where they are just being informed to say that, for example, we are going to implement 1, 2, 3. Now, I will give a practical example. That's old in such a way that back in the days, we didn't have Pampers. They used to use those white cloth for kids. But Pampers were introduced. And if now we can just go in those local communities, you find that rivers there are just being polluted by those what? By those Pampers. Now we ask to say that, will our policies be effective in addressing matters faced by local governance, by local communities, if local communities are not being consulted and given an opportunity to participate? That will be the question. And back to our keynote speaker mentioned the issue of decommissioning of the coal power stations, to say that who is responsible for that, who benefits from that. And now we'll also have give a practical example of one of coal power station that was decommissioned in Mpumalanga there in 2022. And according to the president's, it was indicated that according to that just energy implementation, just energy is their livelihoods. So if we have an instant where a context it is not taken into consideration. For example, we just think, for example, if we implement this that was implemented and worked in a particular community, will work on another community. It will also create challenges when it comes to addressing environmental challenges. Because even looking in South Africa, we have different villages or communities that are experiencing different environmental challenges. So for our policies to be effective, those communities need to be visited, and they need to be, and I strongly believe that, for example, in this case, the issue of longitudinal research is the one that will help. Researchers should go there, live with those communities, experience whatsoever that are experiencing for some period, for them in order to come up with a particular policy that will adequately address those environmental challenges. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Now, we've seen the impacts of climate change. Prof. Rachidi, are current global commitments ambitious enough to prevent worst impact of climate change? What do you think?
Thank you. A very loaded question, and good morning. I'm not sure if we can say they are adequate, but what I can say is, I mean, talking about what we've got now as, you know, as scientific, natural sciences, and then human element, we also spoke about the importance of governance. So we need to integrate so many things. We need to see that the scientific, the natural science part that we're talking about in this is very important. But for it to be, you know, to go forward, for it to be fruitful, for it to see fruition, we need also the human element that we're talking about, communities, the governance, the leadership. We need to also make it very important that the people that are going to take it through, to take it forward, are skilled enough, they're knowledgeable enough, they understand what is supposed to be happening. So that skilling, that ability thing, and competencies of people are very important. The governance is very important because our leaders need to be able to know. They also need to be competent enough. They need to be able to understand that they need to lead people towards realization of better, you know, mechanisms, better strategies, better, you know, everything that needs to be put in place. Because what we've got is we do have technology, we do have science that can tell us, that can measure what is happening, that can tell us this is what is happening, this is what can happen in future or may happen or is likely to happen. But then we also need the indigenous knowledge of people, we need the skills of people, but mostly we need behavior change of people that needs to drive that for it to be realized, you know, all the strategies that we are putting into place in terms of sustainability, they need to be governed properly. As we started even with keynote speaking, that we need that governance within that leadership. But also, not only do we need leadership, we need behavior change of people, we need to also create opportunities or create environments that enable the skilled people, the science, the technology for it to be carried forward. Because my belief is we can have the best technology, we can have the best strategy for sustainability and put it into place if we do not have the opportunities and the environment enabling behavior change, enabling, the skills of other people to know what to do, then I don't see that we can see, the strategies being more fulfilled or seeing fruition or, all that kind of thing. So there's a lot that really still need to be done. But the people, because we're looking at that nexus between the human capital and the natural sciences. So we need to really make sure that we are interdisciplinary and we are intentional in our governance and leadership towards seeing that fruition that we're talking about.
Prof. Netswera, Mr. Netengwa actually did touch on policies. What prevents environmental policies and scientific knowledge from translating into practical outcomes at local level?
Yeah, so I want to indicate that climate matters are international matters and not local matters, because the pollution that happens in Europe is felt here. So these are transnational issues that should be handled at the UN level as well. So I think SDG 13 climate action ought to be translated into policies that are binding. That's why the Paris Agreement is extremely important and many other related instruments. The local community here has very little to do with the climate change. They are not the cause, they are the ultimate casualties of the pollution, the mining, and everything else that is happening everywhere else. Indeed, our local government, our national government, can do something to protect the local community. But our national government cannot, by and large, help curb the effects of climate change that is generated from outside it. It becomes very, very difficult. So we need to find strategies and mechanisms to help sustain the small-scale farmer so that they can do farming that is sustainable under the conditions and circumstances where water becomes scarce, where water is polluted. So government ought to intervene and look at mechanisms to alleviate this burden. But beyond its borders, at the UN level and at regional multilateral institution, it has to agitate for collective instruments to address these particular challenges. I think that's my input as far as that question is concerned.
Okay. Yes, you can go ahead. She wants to add something.
Sorry. I totally agree with what Prof just said. And then he also, I think it came to my head when he also added that we need to also help the small scale farmer, not just as, not just as principle, participation as principle, but participation as practice. Yeah, thank you for helping me along. What I mean is I think that came to my head because of what you said, Prof. Because we're thinking about participation, we know communities have to participate. We've got policies that communities have to participate, that's principle. But then in terms of having that as practice is to hear them out, to hear that small scale farmer there. What is it that is troubling them in terms of climate change, in terms of climate degradation, in terms of water scarcity and all that? So that when we come up with policies and all those kind of things, we're listening to them and we're taking that participation as, you know, as a practical kind of thing instead of it just being principle, like, communities are participating in principle. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Prof. Dr. Maimela, there's been talks of interventions that have been made, the likes of your AI, the likes of the technological advances, the likes of drones that have been used,
Because we're addressing them in a different language. You might find that you have the solution, but because you don't understand exactly what it says, then it changes everything. We've got many avenues in our province in Limpopo. I was even thinking about the Bengeni. I don't know if people know about the Bengeni, wherein you don't go. I don't know why you don't go there. But it is part of an area that teaches us about what AI and the drones could do. We look at the flat land of what we have between Polokwane and Nobody or Boyne. You mentioned that. But what are we doing until somebody comes and says something can be done? That's when we'll do something about it. AI, our people have been doing AI, but they didn't know it was AI. Until somebody came and said, what you're doing is AI. When we grew up, we used to take an A4 paper and put it together to be like an aeroplane, and then it flies up. It was AI. It's a pity we were not trying to get information about anything else. So more often the solutions we have, but it depends on how we want to have those solutions. Prasipo, you from Mpumalanga, we don't harness renewable energy from Mpumalanga, lalpuma konilanga, but we still have challenges of energy, while we can be able to harness that kind of energy. You drive from here to Liwahomu, you've got Bakonimalapa, you've got the Chweni, until somebody can come and do something. That's when you say, oh, yeah, man. Because we've got that thing that I call ASAN mentality. You know, when somebody says ASAN, it's like I knew, ASAN. Because we don't apply our minds in terms of thinking what this can do for us. So yeah, let me halt there for now.
Thank you for that. Back to you, Dr. Mdluli. How can South Africa prioritize and just to ensure that a just transition to a low carbon economy?
Thank you so much for that question. I think to answer that, we need to protect our forests. That's number one. And then number two, the community have to respond. And also, we need to know about our livelihood, and we have to prohibit some of the accesses, more especially on the issue of the forest to start with. If you can check around in terms of green economy or the carbon issue, in Limpopo per se, or I can even touch a bit of Mpumalanga as well. In Limpopo, we have some lakes in Venda. The Lake Fundudzi is one of the places, and another one is in Messina, is one of the places that even now there's ongoing debate with this company called Mamba, where they also wanted to put some mines there without consulting even the community. When it comes to the forest issue, those places are protected indigenously. And that's where you find that there are a lot of things or mysterious things that are happening to the communities that we are not aware of. Number one, communities are protected by these forests, and we don't just go there. We have to follow some ethic or ethnic issues. Those lakes were not built just like that. There were indigenous people who were staying there. There are indigenous trees that are there that needs to be protected. Not lakes only. We have some rivers. those rivers that are surrounding us, we don't just go and mine even sand just like that. There should be a way on how we harvest even some sand or even how we chop down the trees. Our children nowadays are affected by a lot of diseases that we don't know. Why? Because we chop down our trees. Anywhere we put some mines. Issue of benefit sharing when we go back to the communities. Are communities consulted? No. Tomorrow, we just wake up and we find the paper that people are being evacuated from that place. They are going somewhere. And because some other people, they are hungry for money, poverty is there. They'll just accept whatever is coming to their way. And tomorrow you find that we are facing some of these natural disasters that we cannot stop. A few days ago, we experienced some hails and rains. Where are they coming from? Sometimes you may find that we have tempered to some of the places that we are not aware that maybe in that place we have to go just like that. And as youth, we have this tendency of saying we are going out. And you find that even our dressing to those places, some of them are sacred. You don't have to just dress like that. But you find that ourselves, we go them. Even in terms of harvesting medicine, more especially for the forest issue, we deal with the issue of traditional medicine. We just harvest the medicine anyhow. We don't check the season, or we don't even ask that medicine from the ancestors. It's not the Inyangas, by the way, that are harvesting the medicine. Even the pharmaceutical industries, there are some of the plants that you cannot find them in KZN. There are some of the plants that you cannot find them in Mpumalanga, but you can only find them in the Lake Fundudzi, for example. So if we can keep our environment, our forest safe, including the knowledge system, I think we can do away with the environment that is not clean. And even in the issue of governance, let us teach our communities somewhere, somehow, that their knowledge is not just poor like that. Their knowledge is meaningful to the society. And their knowledge, it is meaningful even to the academics. Because we go to them doing some research, and at the end of the day, we get the findings. We don't go back to the villages and we give back what we have gotten. There are a lot of medicines that we harvested in the forest. But if we can keep those forests, we can keep our communities together, and we teach.
It represents the environment, whereas the black part represents the development. So while we are still there, we really need development. And for us to transit in those green and ensure that we create opportunities, firstly, we should address challenges that are being encountered by our local communities. Because we cannot be in a position where we can say that, for example, they should do away from collecting firewood and for them to do all those other chores because they contribute towards, for example, climate change or those other things. Whereas those people needs are not being met. So firstly, before we convince them to transit from their activities that are assumed to be contributing towards climate change and whatsoever, we should first address their challenges. Because we cannot be in a position, for example, where we just blame local communities about climate change. Because it's more like those local communities now are just the victims of activities that are happening more in urban areas. Examples were also given to say that those local communities, they have their own ways of letting the environment rehabilitate. They do not just farm all the time. And even with how they use the issue of how do they ensure that they produce, for example, they just use those manures as fertilizers, some things that are not even harmful to the environment. Yes, we are saying that we should transit, and even according to the SDG 13, as was also mentioned by our keynote speaker, it also indicates that, for example, those developed countries, they have commitments to help developing countries to contribute towards a energy transition. So, for example, in relation to investing in those solar panels, wind, whatsoever, we should ensure that we firstly create jobs, and those local communities, they also participate there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. As we wrap up, maybe if I can get closing remarks from each of the panelists in just under a minute, what practical actions can individuals and communities take that will have the greatest impact? Maybe starting with you, Prof. Rachidi, and then we'll go all the way down. Thank you.
I think there are a lot of things that really need to be taken into account. The practical solutions that really need to be taken into account. But I think that also the practical solutions start with hearing what I'm gonna talk about, what we've been talking about here. They start with hearing what indigenous knowledge has to say about what is happening in terms of the climate, in terms of environmental degradation, and in terms of everything else. But then within organizations, it's also very important to remember to reskill people in terms of the behavior change that needs to be happening. But then at the same time, as you reskill people, make sure that you've got leaders that are going to help people to drive them towards them being willing to change, because behavior change is also very important in terms of bringing in together that nexus between human capital and the scientific knowledge, because natural science is going to bring the technology, is going to bring the systems, is going to bring strategy and all that. But then if the humans do not buy into that technology and systems and everything and are willing and are led and governed properly, we're not gonna have better solutions.
Prof. Netara?
Thank you so much. I think at local level, it is important that we socialize each other, because the consciousness is very important. There are many individuals who may not know what we are talking about when we say climate action, climate change, and what their role and responsibility should be. But I think at the university level, at institutions of learning, I think it should be embedded in curricula, so that our students graduate at least with some basic knowledge about what climate action is all about, and the roles and responsibilities of various stakeholders. At local municipalities and government, I think we should put programs and policies to mitigate the effects of climate change. I spoke earlier on about the effect on the small-scale farmer, and those effects are devastating because it has impact on livelihoods. So what is it that municipalities are doing in order to make sure that these people continue to produce? There is quite a lot they can do in order to support our small-scale farmers. So I think they should prioritize that. It should become one of their KPIs. Thanks.
Okay, yeah, thanks very much. With regard to the local level, I strongly believe that context is very much important. We have areas where they do not even have access to the network. So for us, for example, to go there and say we will introduce, for example, those drones in such a way that will even monitor during floods, how river levels work and whatsoever, it might not apply to that particular context. So for us to have practical solutions, we should first understand the context of the specific area that we'll be dealing with. Because while we are still there, for example, you might find that we still have those local communities where they still have those traditional granary, where they have that mold-built storage structure, where they store their harvest there. It can be the sugar, the maize, those things. So if we want to also address the issue of climate change, firstly, we should understand what are communities practicing first, and we build on what is already there. Because, for example, our innovation and technology might not work if we do not understand the context. It's not every community that can address the issue of climate change only focusing on technology. It was already mentioned to say that, for example, we have a traditional ways of even avoiding the issue of climate change, because even Dr. here indicated that, for example, some of those climate change, for example, you might find that they are just about the consequences of people interacted with something that was supposed. I was impressed one day I visited back there in home. I found that they were given about 2 bags of fertilizers. So, and they even sometimes even have those tractors that plow for communities. So it is more like our local government is there trying, but at the same time, we still have the issue of limited resources. So if it's provided with limited resource, with enough resources, I strongly believe that practical solutions might be seen. Thank you.
so much. Dr. Mdluli, if you can just keep your response just under a minute. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, thank you very much. From me, I will start saying that all of us who are here, we are negatively practicing the climate issues because we don't take care of our climate. If we can go back to our houses or even where we are forever throwing papers, not taking care of our environment. Some of us who are having kids using pampers, as they have indicated, you know, we know what we do. But let me just say, from the African indigenous knowledge system perspective, the environment is not simple a stock of resources waiting to be exploited. It is a living space that is within human beings, and we have to oblige the responsibilities and relationships. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Your last word,
Okay.
Dr. Maime?
Thank you very much. Maybe just 4 takeaways, if you could, quickly. It will be integration. I'll explain that: balance, equity, and resilience. In terms of balance, and I mean in terms of integration, and Professor Netswera, I think I will lean more on the issues you raised earlier on. We need to be able to stress that climate solutions require both scientific rigor and social legitimacy. So we're putting that nexus together. In terms of balance, we want to say we will need to always advocate for what we call industrial growth that is green, inclusive, and also innovation driven. More close to final, the equity part of it in terms of the social initiatives, we need to always highlight governance reforms that we have to make sure that they prioritize marginal communities or marginalized voices. Finally, resilience. We need to look at how diversity and community-led initiatives can be driven by what we are calling here sustainable development. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that to the panelists. One thing that has come out strongly is the need to balance society and nature, as well as strengthening community participation, as well as the knowledge and developing practical solutions that connect environmental sustainability with livelihoods and developments. And with that being said, thank you so much for being an awesome audience, and thank you to the panelists, and all the best for the rest of the day. Thank you.
A round of applause for our panel. Thank you for that knowledge exchange. Without wasting any time, I'm gonna ask my executive dean and my director to come and present tokens of appreciation, so that we show appreciation. Take the other things out. Prof. Netswera, if you can join us.
protocol that has been already established at the beginning, but it will be actually proper for me to acknowledge in absentia for both the VCs, the Vice Chancellor of the University of Venda, the Vice Chancellor of the University of Limpopo, and also the Executive Dean of the Faculty of Management and Law, and the Office of the Premier representatives. And I also want now to extend the words of appreciation to all of you. Because of time constraints, I'm not going to mention you by name. But again, protocol dictates that I actually say thank you so much to all the speakers, obviously starting with our VC, Dr. Mabilibili, who actually provides an amazing support. It shows that we are definitely led in the University of Limpopo. We can give him a round of applause even if he's not here. Then I will also actually say thank you so much to the Vice Chancellor of the University of Venda for the speech. This particular a platform for dialogue on these nerve-wracking issues is very, very important, and it has been mentioned that it's not just a local or provincial or national issue. It is a global, in our case, not international issues. It's a global issue. So thank you so much for giving the background. And I think a lot of actually the students that are in the room now develops interest in terms of pursuing some of their researches that they will align to these particular SDGs. Thank you, Prof, and all the best for the initiatives of the researches that you will actually be leading in responding to the social challenges that centers around developmental issues as a chair. What do they call them? DSI, NRF, SASOL chair. Let's give him a round of applause. I don't see Dr. Mabila here, who's actually seems to be leading a very, very critical, a directorate in the university. And I think now, because the VC of Univenda is here, during lunch or during the networking, we may have to engage further on what we can do together, not through just conferences, but impact research that will show the marriage that we are not in competition, but we are in collaborations and we're working together. Thank you so much, Dr. Mabila, in absentia, for also providing the message of support. Now, Executive Dean, I know you have not given much platform to actually, express your opinion on this particular matter, but we really, really appreciate that at your executive level, you really played a critical role to present the VC to this audience. Let's appreciate the Executive Dean of the Faculty of Management and Law. Now, with the panelists, I must begin by saying that Nhlanhla and I, we have to make this work. And if you agree, I make you a residing moderator. You agree? Deal sealed. You see? Let's give a round of applause. You did a marvelous job. I always enjoy the manner in which you address matters in terms of moderating the content. I heard that panel member Netengwa spoke about context, content, and make reference to quite a number of issues. Colleagues, this shows the kind of the products that the University of Limpopo produces. I liked what Professor Netswera mentioned, that he did thought deeply, and he said, no, let me go and join a university that is at the center of a rural area. And I now actually say, adding on what he said, even the conferences, Prof. Netswera, that I do attend, the one popular, SAYAPAM, represented by Professor Mujezi, our students, when they go there and they make presentations from both universities, they come with awards. So we're able to compete at both national and international level. So we're really making something good from these particular universities. Prof. Rachidi, Dr. Mdluli, Dr. Maimela, you see, because of the eye that I see from the program manager or the program director for today is beginning to know the convener. Let's leave there because you look at me to show that your time is up. I will no longer actually go beyond that. I just want to leave you as a program director with this note that, you know, you seems to be doing well in this particular a role. And I think also Dr. Madikana will also actually step up to that level. But I think I will wait until a 5th symposium, which is a conference, comes, whether I can now declare you to be a national or an international program director. But you're still now a provincial program director. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Mukwena. Prof. Mukwena, I'm very much international. You should Google me. You know, you'll find evidence. Colleagues, thank you very much. So from here, we're gonna have a breaker. We're gonna have tea. The tea is served in the mingle and, you know, and relax after a long day of being intellectuals. Lunch will be served here. So after your breakaway sessions, you'll come back here for lunch. Colleagues will be directing you to breakaway rooms. Breakaway 1 and 2 is the block behind us, which is B block, and breakaway 3 is on E block. So from the foyer, you turn left. If you're going to breakaway 1 and 2 from the foyer, you turn right and go all the way back to B block. So lunch will then, was supposed to be at 1, lunch will be starting at 1:30. So we'll be relying on the session chairs to control that. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the day. We'll see each other at lunch and